Tribe, I become invincible with my 10,000 times bonus from the start. Chapter 131, Lillian's Shadow Trial. Hearing Li Cheng's confident words, Ella was stunned for a moment. Then, she had the urge to laugh. Li Cheng was just immortal. Where did he get the courage to say such arrogant words? Although Li Cheng had made some achievements in the mortal world and it was not wrong to say that he was the strongest player, he was still immortal. There was a huge difference, an insurmountable gap, between a god and a human. Later on, Ella carefully thought about what Li Cheng had done in the past few days. He obtained a few legendary soldiers, killed the goddess of poison after she descended, and then used the hands of the various gods to chase after the goddess of poison around the universe. Then, he obtained the frost dragons that had been hidden for 1,000 years, and in the shadow world, Li Cheng had almost single-handedly crushed the alliance army that had countless players. Ella would not underestimate Li Cheng just because he was a rookie in the mortal plane. On the contrary, when she was in the mortal plane, Ella was a female marshal. She was someone who could eliminate him. How difficult was it to do all these things? From the looks of it, Li Cheng's future was limitless. It was not impossible for him to become a god. When she thought of this, Ella's mood gradually calmed down. In the end, there was an inexplicable smile at the corner of her mouth. After obtaining the foundation of the profound empire that spanned thousands of years, Li Cheng was satisfied and left with his troops. He opened the map and looked at the coordinates displayed. Currently, he only had two things to do in the shadow world. The first thing was to complete Lillian's trial. The second thing was to go to the south of the shadow world and give the goddess of darkness a surprise. Thinking of this, Li Cheng led all the troops toward the direction of the mission. After marching for an hour, Asilia had already yawned countless times. She was staggering and almost fell asleep on Luna's body. After a while of marching, everyone felt a chill from the depths of their souls. At the same time, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ears. Ding, dong, you've entered an extremely dangerous area. Please, proceed with caution. Hearing this notification, Li Cheng narrowed his eyes and looked at the shadow portal not far away. Without thinking, he cast a scouting spell and the information immediately appeared. Shadow Trial. Description: an unknown trial passage. No one knows where it came from or what lies inside. Level 1. Grade: Legendary. Type: Shadow Princess Lillian's exclusive hero trial. Content: the trial was also divided into hero and soldier types. After passing the hero trial, one's attributes would normally increase. This was the first time Li Cheng had seen a hero's exclusive trial. Seeing this, Li Cheng did not hesitate and chose to enter. The moment he pressed the enter button, a light grey shadow instantly enveloped all of Li Cheng's troops. A few seconds later, the shadow disappeared and the system notification rang. Ding, dong, you've entered the legendary grade shadow trial. Ding, dong, after passing the current trial, your hero, Shadow Princess Lillian, will unlock the upper limit of her level. Ding, dong, after failing the current trial, your hero, Shadow Princess Lillian, will never be able to break through. Ding dong, the first stage of the trial has begun. Please, complete the task according to the existing defense structures. The trial will be based on the number of enemies you've killed and the battle damage ratio. The higher the score, the higher the reward Lillian will receive. Hearing the system's voice, Li Cheng sucked in a breath of cold air. The consequence of failing the trial was that Lillian would never be able to break through. He absolutely could not accept it. After calming himself down, Li Cheng sized up the scene in front of him. It seemed to be a small town with countless shadows anxiously wandering about. When they saw Li Cheng and Lillian, they were first stunned. Then, they knelt on the ground and said anxiously, "Your Highness, save us. The demons are invading our city. Your Highness, they're coming soon. Don't panic, the princess is here." We're saved. Save us, Your Highness, please. At this moment, Li Cheng saw the situation clearly. It seemed that the content of the trial was to defend the town from the attack of the demon army. Thinking of this, Li Cheng checked the information of the town. 2,350 Shadow Guards, Tier 3. 1,050 Shadow Mages, Tier 4. 700 Shadow Knights, Tier 5. Looking at the town's military strength, it could be said that it was terrible. It was fine if their ranks were low, but there were less than 10,000 people in total. In other words, this trial mainly depended on one's own military strength. The town's defensive facilities were only silver-grade city walls and nothing else. At this moment, countless pitch-black teleportation doors suddenly appeared around the town and a terrifying aura assaulted their faces. Sensing this aura, Li Cheng frowned slightly. This aura was simply too familiar to him. Very quickly, countless terrifying demons slowly walked out of the teleportation doors. Their bodies were pitch black, and there were both humanoid creatures and four-limbed animals. However, their appearances were really not to be praised. They either had ugly horns or bloody mouths and so on. The remaining number of demons appeared in Li Cheng's line of sight. The total number was 368,200. Looking at these demons, Li Cheng did not use his scouting skill. He only relied on the memory in his mind to know their attributes. Li Cheng was very familiar with demons. In his previous life, he had died at the hands of demons. This time, however. Demon Dog, Tier 4. Timidity, Tier 3. Snake Demon, Tier 4. Low-level Demon Lord, Tier 5. After a simple glance, Li Cheng smiled. That was it. Were those even enough for him to fight? The highest level of this demon army was a Tier 5 low-level Demon Lord. Was it there to deliver vegetables to him? Thinking of this, Li Cheng stopped sending his troops to fight. He directly ordered his heroes to attack. Sylvia was the fastest to charge. The frost dragons immediately activated their dragon's breath to cleanse the ground. An enormous amount of energy instantly covered the land. The demons had just stepped out of the teleportation portal and before they could react, they were instantly killed. The demon army was directly blocked by Sylvia. They could not even get out. At the same time, Li Cheng's ears rang with various system notifications. Seeing this scene, the residents of the town who had originally been in despair immediately cheered. Chapter 132, The Last Boss. We're saved. We're saved. It's a giant dragon. Is this the princess's reinforcements? Hey, look. The princess and that man are so close. Could it be? No way. I've lost my love. Damn it. Hearing the shadows' voices, Li Cheng was speechless. These shadows were no different from the humans who liked to join in the fun. Lillian did not care about their voices at all. Instead, she took the initiative to hold Li Cheng's hand. When the shadows saw this scene, their eyes went wide open. Each and every one of them was dumbstruck, as if they were in despair. Li Cheng seemed to have heard many hearts breaking. In just a short while, the remaining number of enemies displayed above Li Cheng's head instantly turned to 0. At the same time, the system's voice sounded in Li Cheng's ears. Ding, dong, you've completed the first stage of the trial. Your score is SSS. Ding, dong, your score has reached the required standard. The second stage of the trial has begun. Hearing the system's voice, Li Cheng was also shocked. This SSS score was the only way to reach the next stage? This condition was too harsh, right? At this moment, another number appeared above Li Cheng. 1,500,000. Compared to the first phase of the trial, there were undoubtedly more demons this time. Soon, Li Cheng saw more tall and ugly figures. 6-armed snake demon, Tier 5. Demon Knight, Tier 5. Roaring Demon, Tier 6. Abyssal Knight, Tier 7. The enemies in this phase were undoubtedly stronger. The lowest tier demons were Tier 5, and their levels were not low either. On average, they were at level 40. Moreover, their marching formation had a clear division of labor between the front and back rows. However, the strength of these demons was still manageable. Luna's archers immediately attacked the portal, sending countless arrows flying toward it. Whoosh! 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 Countless arrows pierced through the sky, enveloping the figures of the demons. In just an instant, the bodies of the demons fell like straw. The demons that were still alive were instantly dumbfounded. What was going on? We're demons, all right? We also need face. If you do this, who's the real monster? Before they had time to think, countless arrows crossed through the portal and shot into the other side. In less than half an hour, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ears again. Ding, dong, the demon army has begun to flee. You've completed the second phase of the trial. Your score is SSS. Ding, dong, your score has reached the required standard. The third and final phase of the trial is about to begin. You'll receive a reward after completing it. Ding, dong, warning. Due to unknown reasons, the strength of all monsters in the third phase of the trial has been increased by 10,000%. Hearing the system's voice, Li Cheng was stunned. Their strength had increased by 100 times? He frowned slightly. He was afraid that this incident was related to that demon king. However, he did not have time to think too much. In the northern part of the town, a huge portal suddenly appeared. Compared to the previous two portals, this portal was undoubtedly many times larger. At the same time, countless ugly Gundam figures slowly flew out from the portal. They had goat horns on their heads and a pair of ugly wings that looked like sarcomas on their backs. Li Cheng narrowed his eyes. He was too familiar with this type of demon. Bat-winged Abyss Demon, Tier 10. The Bat-winged Abyss Demons were a famous legendary flying force in the demon army. They could shoot out dark attributed AoE flames and were considered long-range units. As legendary soldiers, their most famous skill was their extremely long range, far exceeding the range of a normal ranged unit. To players, this was very uncomfortable. The enemy was flying in the sky and had a long range, high damage, and even AoE damage. They would not even have the ability to fight back. What was the point of fighting? In fact, after the demon general invaded Earth in the future, the Bat-winged Abyss Demons were one of the most troublesome forces for humans. And at this time, the number of remaining enemies had also become 30 million. A 30 million legendary flying force even in the later stages of the game, this would still be difficult to deal with. Of course, for Li Cheng, there was naturally no such problem. There was also a gap between the legendary soldiers. The equipment of the soldiers, the skills of the lords, the level of the soldiers, the trials, the awakening, and so on would all affect the combat ability of the soldiers. Similarly, as a legendary army, the range of the Frost Marksmen was inferior to that of the Bat-winged Abyss Demons. However, after Li Cheng activated Frenzied Shooting, his range was directly increased by 100%. Hence, he could attack them back. Moreover, it was not like Li Cheng did not have a flying army. When he thought of this, Li Cheng casually waved his hand and turned off Desperate Boat, and immediately activated Holy Light Blessing. The latter could increase the defense of a soldier by 500%. As both were legendary soldiers, this number was a little abnormal. The opponent would not be able to break through the defense of the elves. At the same time, Sylvia and Lillian gave the order at the same time. The war horses under the countless heavenly knights instantly emitted the roar of engines. Lillian did not hold back as she directly let half of the heavenly knights activate the skill, Heavenly Rage. Surging energy poured out from the long spears and countless kill notifications rang in Li Cheng's ears. Seeing this, Li Cheng no longer paid attention to the battle situation. If the opponent was comprised of legendary soldiers, he would not lose many units in battle. He had so many buffs, they were not for nothing. The time needed to encircle and annihilate the bat-winged abyss demons was undoubtedly much longer. Flying soldiers had no other characteristics. They could only run. After more than 10 minutes, Sylvia slapped down with her palm and the last of the bat-winged abyss demons were instantly smashed into pieces. The number of demons displayed above Li Cheng became 1. Just as Li Cheng was guessing what the last boss would be, a terrifying aura came through the teleportation door. A huge arm suddenly stretched out from within it. The size of the arm was very large, at least 100 meters in length. Its width was also close to more than 10 meters. On that arm, there were countless blood-red eyes that looked like pustules. When he saw the last boss, Li Cheng's eyelids suddenly twitched. This guy was definitely not ordinary. He immediately cast a detection spell, and the information of the boss appeared. Chapter 133, Instant Kill. Specializes in all kinds of fancy things. Ancient demon god's arm of plague, mythical. Description: rumored to be the arm of an ancient demon god, hidden at the bottom of the bottomless abyss. After many years, it has gained its own consciousness. Grade: mythical, tier 8. Level: 50. HP: 1.5 trillion. Physical/magic attack: 66,800. Defense: 6,000. Skills: high-level magic resistance, mighty sweep, destructive grip, poison outbreak, plague spread. A level 50 mythical boss with a connection to the ancient demon god. Its attributes were undoubtedly stronger than bosses of the same tier and level. As expected, the boss's attributes were extremely perverse. Its attack and HP were ridiculously high, and its skills were also terrifyingly strong. Not only was its defense extremely high, but its skills also reduced any damage received by soldiers from the main dimension. When the two skills were combined, it was simply a bit of a scoundrel. If a boss like this was not eliminated in a short period of time, it would only become more and more difficult to fight later on. Even Li Cheng's units were slowly losing HP. This boss was considered very strong. If it was an ordinary player who encountered it, the players would still suffer countless damage even in the later stages of the game. However, in front of Li Cheng, all the damage reduction skills and defense were nothing but a joke. When he thought of this, Li Cheng gave Luna a look and told her to activate all the buffs. At the same time, he ordered all the units to focus their fire. In an instant, all the units were at full strength. The Frost Marksmen released their Frost Arrow Rain, the Frost Dragons released Dragon's Breath, and the Heavenly Knights launched a charge. The Shadow Assassins also silently arrived behind the boss. In just a second, the mythical grade boss that had yet to release any skills had its health bar completely emptied. Boom! The huge arm fell freely and crashed into the ground, kicking up a lot of dust. At the same time, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ears. Ding, dong! You've successfully killed the mythical grade ancient demon god's arm of plague. Ding, dong! You've completed all the stages of the shadow trial. Your overall score is SSS. Ding, dong! You've obtained the trial rewards of 2 million gold coins, 1 ancient demon god's divine fragments, and 1 legendary plague enchantment card. Ding, dong! You've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained 20 billion gold coins, 10,000 ancient demon god's divine fragments, and a mythical plague enchantment card. Ding, dong! Your hero, Shadow Princess Lillian, has been unlocked. Ding, dong! Your hero, Shadow Princess Lillian, has comprehended a new skill. Ding, dong! World announcement. Dragon God Alliance player Netherworld has successfully cleared the legendary grade Shadow Trial. As the first player in the world to clear a legendary grade trial, I hereby reward you 200 reputation points and a mythical grade dazzling gift box. Ding, dong! You've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained 2 million reputation points and an immortal grade dazzling gift box. Ding, dong! At this moment, the players who heard this information were all stunned. Ah, this no wonder Netherworld boss didn't bring us to play. He went to clear the trial himself. Everyone, does anyone know what the effect of the legendary trial is? I want to fight, too. Ha ha ha, are you here to joke around? You should F***ing get your own team to tier 3 first. Forget it, isn't Miss Pearl a part of Netherworld's team anyway? Following her is also considered as following Netherworld boss, right? Sigh, I didn't expect Netherworld boss to still be fighting in the arcane realm at this late hour. What reason do we have not to work as hard? Stop talking, hurry up and farm. Farm, farm, farm. Netherworld boss is like this, so what reason do we have not to work hard like him? Hearing the system's voice, Li Cheng's pupils constricted. It had to be said that the rewards of the legendary grade trial were very generous. What he did not expect was that there was a total of 10,000 ancient demon gods' divine fragments in the reward. One had to know that the ancient demon god was an evil boss that had existed since the beginning of time, and among the evil forces, his divine fragments were the most sought-after item. It was simply priceless. Every time it appeared, it would cause a bloody storm. At this time, the boss's corpse slowly turned into a light grey mist and disappeared into the thick fog. Unfortunately, he did not drop anything. Li Cheng was not discouraged. He opened his backpack and looked at the various rewards. Divine Fragment, Ancient Demon God. Description: the crystal fragment containing the ancient demon god's divinity. After collecting it, you can condense the ancient demon god's divinity. Level 1. Grade: Immortal. Effect: condenses the ancient demon god's divinity, 10,000/100000000. Looking at the information of the ancient demon god, Li Cheng frowned. Condensing the ancient demon god's divinity only required 10 million fragments. Although Li Cheng only had 10,000 pieces in his hand now, compared to the divine fragments required by the god of massacre, this ancient demon god was far too inferior. There's also a gap between gods, hey? It seems that the god of massacre's many times stronger than the ancient demon god, Li Cheng murmured as he temporarily threw the divine fragments into his backpack. He continued to check the attributes of the other rewards. Plague Enchantment Card. Description: an enchantment card from the ancient demon god that contains a portion of his divine power. According to legend, this demon god had once held a portion of the highly toxic divine job and was good at using various poisons. Level 1. Grade: Mythical. Effect: after use, equipment additional attributes cause 50,000 poison damage to enemies within 5,000 yards per second. It can be turned off and activated at any time. Restriction: hero equipment only. Can only be used once. Looking at the attributes of the enchantment card, Li Cheng was also stunned. This was the skill of that boss, right? He only felt that it was slightly ridiculously strong. It was indeed worthy of being a mythical grade enchantment card. It caused 50,000 damage to enemies within 5,000 yards every second. What kind of concept was this? This meant that with the current strength of the players, even if Li Cheng just remained stationary, he would be able to grind all of their troops to death. If their levels were a little lower, they could be instantly killed. Moreover, Li Cheng had the most advanced enchantment platform, so the success rate of the enchantment card would be full. Li Cheng rubbed his chin and thought for a moment, thinking about who he would place the enchantment card on. In the end, Li Cheng decided to use this enchantment card to enchant Lillian's equipment. Her equipment was of an unlimited growth type, and the mythical grade enchantment card could be used for a long time. Thinking of this, Li Cheng first threw the enchantment card into his backpack and waited until he returned to his territory. Chapter 134, The Second Shadow Knights. Finally, it was the legendary Trials Immortal Grade gift box. Li Cheng opened it without even thinking twice. Ding, dong. You've opened the Immortal Grade gift box. You've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained the Immortal Wonder Ancient Demon God's Cursed Shrine. Seeing the item he had just received, Li Cheng was also a little surprised. He did not expect to obtain an Immortal Wonder this time. He opened his backpack and took it out. Ancient Demon God's Cursed Shrine, Immortal Wonder. Description: in ancient times, a special building built by an extremely powerful demon god was used to weaken the power of his enemy. Level 1. Grade: Immortal Wonder. Effect: select a god and receive a daily reduction in belief value of 90%. Seeing the effect of the Immortal Wonder, Li Cheng was first stunned. Then, his mind was filled with, what is this F***ing thing? He had never heard of this effect before. It could actually reduce the belief value of a god by 90%. One had to know that the belief value of a god could gradually be converted into divine power. For gods who use a lot of divine power, reducing the belief value by 90% was even worse than killing them. Which god was Li Cheng thinking of to deal with now? The goddess of poison. Li Cheng quickly shook his head and rejected this option. The goddess of poison was trash now. He had brought to light the location of her divine kingdom and broadcasted it all over the universe, and in the main plane, her church was being thoroughly cleansed by the good camp. Therefore, the goddess of poison would definitely not be able to turn the tables. Li Cheng estimated that in a few more years, the goddess of poison would fall from the altar and completely fall. Although her clergy was very disgusting, many people were jealous. When he thought of this, Li Cheng already had an answer in his heart. Some old woman had sent a priest to attack his territory. It was impolite not to reciprocate. How could he let her down by not giving her a big gift in return? After counting the spoils of war, Li Cheng opened Lillian's hero interface. The main purpose of this trial was to let Lillian break through, and the current Lillian had also comprehended a new skill. Shadow Power. Description: Lillian is the princess of the shadow world. Hence, she can give her troops the characteristics of the shadow world. Effect: evasion rate of all units in the territory increases by 90%. Looking at the effect of the skill, Li Cheng felt that it was quite useful. All units in the territory had an additional 90% evasion rate. In Tribe, the evasion rate was a very rare concept. Although it was not as ridiculous as damage reduction, this evasion rate was the nemesis of physical damage. With this skill, even if all of Li Cheng's troops stood there and did not fight back, 90% of the enemy's physical damage would be lost. Not to mention, this was effective on all units in the territory. It had to be said that as an SSS class hero, Lillian had never disappointed Li Cheng, whether it was on the battlefield or in bed. After closing the skill panel, all of Li Cheng's units were enveloped by a light grey light and were instantly teleported out of the secret realm. At this time, it was already 3 o'clock in the morning. Acelia's eyelids were struggling to stay open and she kept yawning. She forced herself to ask, "Earl Netherworld, where are we going next?" Hearing this, Li Cheng was also speechless. He thought about it and prepared to lead the troops out before heading back to rest. Anyway, even if the event ended, he could return to the shadow world at any time. If he went back to recruit more troops, his strength would increase by a lot. Thinking of this, Li Cheng said, "Go back to the territory and get some rest." After Li Cheng said that, the troops slowly moved. At this moment, Lillian suddenly spoke after hesitating for a moment, "Lord, why don't we go to my house to take a look?" "Your house?" Li Cheng was puzzled. "Is your house not at my territory?" Lillian obviously did not understand what Li Cheng meant. Instead, she highlighted 2 words, "Glittering Castle." Hearing this, Li Cheng's eyelids twitched. After thinking for a moment, he decided he might as well go and take a look since he had nothing to do now. Thus, he nodded and let Lillian lead the way. The glittering castle was located at the center of the shadow world. Notice that the center of this place was not the center of the map, but the center of the entire shadow world. To put it bluntly, the shadow world was a plane that was similar to a sphere, and the glittering castle was located at the center of that sphere. Since it was the center of the entire shadow world, the route to the glittering castle was naturally unusual. Under Lillian's lead, everyone passed through an extremely long and narrow tunnel that led them underground. After a full hour, everyone's vision finally became clear. Not far away was a magnificent castle that was emitting a faint light. This castle was a few hundred meters tall. Although it was called a castle, it was actually much bigger than an ordinary small castle. Moreover, Cheng could feel countless terrifying existences looming within. At the same time, the system's voice rang in Cheng's ears. Ding, dong, you've discovered a special map, the Glittering Castle. You've obtained 100,000 reputation points. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained 1 billion reputation points. Just discovering a map had increased his reputation points by 1 billion. Cheng could not help but feel a little shocked. At this moment, countless dark figures appeared in front of everyone, knights riding on tall nightmare beasts. Their entire bodies were covered in pitch-black armor, only revealing their red eyes. The nightmare beasts beneath them were very strong. They jumped off their horses and knelt on one knee as they greeted, "Greetings, Your Highness." After saying that, their gazes fell on Cheng. They seemed to be a little stunned, but they still shouted, "Greetings, Your Highness." Cheng was stunned. "Your Highness." However, thinking about what they said, it did not seem to be wrong. Lillian was already sleeping in the same room as him, so there was no problem with calling him the prince consort. Thinking of this, Cheng cast a scouting spell and their attributes appeared. Second Shadow Knights. Description: the Shadow Princess Lillian's second knights. They are very powerful and are mainly responsible for the security of the Glittering Castle. Military strength, 5,260,000 Shadow Imperial Knights, Crown, 3,800,000 Shadow Senior Mages, Crown. Looking at the information of this army, Cheng's eyelids twitched. He even suspected that he had seen wrongly. There are F*9 million crown soldiers. Even Cheng could not help but feel a little shocked. Even if he obtained the recruitment authority of some crown troops, producing them daily would still require a lot of effort. Using the frost dragons as an example, he could only produce 500 of them per day. Even if he used a card to double the output, he could only produce 1,000 of them. Chapter 135, Lillian's Terrifying Dowry. How much time would he have to save to produce the 9 million in front of him? When he thought of this, Cheng could not help but look at Lillian. Who exactly was this girl? Lillian did not explain too much. Soon, she led everyone to the interior of the castle. The magnificent hall was decorated with all kinds of gorgeous sculptures. The magic lamps on the ceiling were also emitting a faint fluorescent light. However, there seemed to be no sound in the huge palace. The heroes were also a little surprised. Asilia sighed and said, "What a beautiful palace. Sister Lillian, is this your home?" Lillian smiled and nodded. "Yes." Then, Lillian arranged for a room for everyone. Of course, Lillian had arranged for herself and Cheng to be together. Luna's gaze was a little evasive, and her small face was flushed. Sylvia's face was full of disdain as she sneered at Cheng. The innocent Asilia blinked her big eyes strangely, not knowing why everyone had such a reaction. Of course, Cheng's face was not red and his heart was not beating quickly. He sent everyone to sleep, and then followed Lillian to her bedroom. The bedroom was filled with a faint fragrance. It was the scent of Lillian's body. Cheng looked at the bedroom. The room was very plain. In the shadow world, there were not many colors. At this moment, Lillian did not avoid Cheng's gaze. She went straight to the closet and changed her clothes. A few minutes later, Lillian had already taken off her armor. Her slender body was covered with a layer of sleepiness that was as thin as a cicada's wings. Under the cool moonlight, her body was covered with a layer of silver light. Li Cheng took a deep breath. He was not in a hurry. He had many questions now, so he asked, "In such a big castle, are you alone?" Lillian nodded and said, "Occasionally, there'll be guests. For example, Sister Ella. When she has time, she'd come to accompany me for some time." Hearing this, Li Cheng's heart could not help but ache. In such a big castle, it was only Lillian, a lonely girl. He approached Lillian's side and touched her hair. Her eyes were full of heartache. Lillian smiled and waved her hand in front of Li Cheng. She gave Li Cheng a reassuring look and said with a smile, "I'm used to it." "Lord, do you want a drink?" Li Cheng was not a fool. He nodded and said, "Let's have some." Lillian quickly found a bottle of red wine. She poured a glass for herself and sipped it. Then, she approached Li Cheng and kissed him. The soft red wine flowed down her delicate tongue and into Li Cheng's mouth. Li Cheng did not expect Lillian to ambush him. At this time, how could he care about any problems? He quickly reacted. He hugged Lillian's slender waist and turned her over, greedily sucking up the red wine. At this moment, Lillian's body seemed to be boneless as she lay on the bed. After waking up, Li Cheng rubbed his slightly stiff lower back, thinking that Lillian's kung fu was pretty good. This was definitely not Lillian's nature. She most likely learned this from when Ella came here to accompany her. When he thought of this, Li Cheng's mind surfaced again. What would happen if Ella and Lillian slept together? After fantasizing for a while, Li Cheng realized that Lillian had already gotten up. The armor that had been taken off and put to the side had also disappeared. After Li Cheng washed up, he quickly walked out of the room. Outside, everyone was chatting in the hall. At this time, Lillian had already put on her armor. When she saw him, she immediately stood up and said with a smile, "Lord, come and have breakfast." Hearing this, Li Cheng did not say anything. Asilia immediately corrected him, "Sister Lillian, this is obviously lunch." Everyone smiled and shook their heads. No one wanted to compete with this simple saintess. Lunch was lunch. At the dining table, Li Cheng was eating bread when Lillian suddenly said, "Lord, the glittering castle currently has a total of 10 night groups, with a total population of 7 trillion. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Lillian in shock. 7 trillion. Hearing this number, even Asilia was so shocked that her mouth was wide open. This number was too terrifying. Even if all the paladins of the Church of Light were added together, they probably would not have that many. Lillian ignored the expressions of these people and continued, "Among them, there are more than 300 billion top-ranked soldiers and more than 4 trillion legendary soldiers. The rest are all high-level soldiers. Their levels are already maxed out and they don't any need training. If the Lord needs them, you can take them. These can be considered Lillian's dowry." As Lillian's words fell, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ears. "Ding, dong. You've obtained all the permissions of the first Shadow Knights. Ding, dong. You've obtained all the permissions of the second Shadow Knights. Ding, dong. You've obtained all the permissions of the third Shadow Knights. Ding, dong. Ding, dong. You've obtained all the permissions of the 10th Shadow Knights." Hearing the system's voice, Li Cheng was shocked. Receiving all the permissions meant that Li Cheng could now control these 7 trillion troops. The other 3 heroines were also shocked by Lillian's words. Forget about the 7 trillion troops, the key point was that these 7 trillion troops were all high-level troops and above, and they were all max level. Such a terrifying army was enough to destroy everything, and Lillian actually said that it was her dowry? Was getting married so terrifying now? At this moment, Li Cheng knocked on Lillian's little head and said seriously, "Stop fooling around. What's going on with these troops?" He did not think that there were so many troops in the glittering castle. There was definitely something he did not know. Looking at Li Cheng's eyes, Lillian rubbed her little head. After a moment of silence, she said, "These troops are elite troops of the entire shadow world. Unless it's absolutely necessary, it's best for them not to appear too many times in the main plane. If they all appear in the main plane, it means that a planar war has begun." Chapter 136, The Church of Light recalls the Holy Maiden. Upon hearing Lillian's words, everyone's expressions became serious. That was because the word war was too scary, too frightening. War meant that one plane would invade another plane. In the long history of the Lost Continent, there had only been two such wars. One was when the world was first created, when the astral world and the evil world were at war, and the other was when the demons invaded the main plane. No matter which time it was, the scale of the war was huge and almost all gods were involved. When she heard about the planar war, Asilia immediately became anxious. She quickly asked, "Hasn't the shadow world always been neutral? They're talking about a planar war now." In response, Lillian simply said, "The Lord's standing is the shadow world's standing. Whether it's neutral or not depends on the Lord's opinion." "But," the shadow dragon Asilia was about to refute, but Lillian interrupted her. Lillian said, "The shadow dragon will agree, even if it's a war with the main plane." Hearing this, everyone was shocked again. From Lillian's words, it seemed like they had heard some terrifying news. Sylvia stared at Li Cheng in disbelief. When did this man become so powerful? Even the shadow dragon had to listen to his orders? Li Cheng was naturally a little dumbfounded. He had never met the shadow dragon before, but whether it was in Li Cheng's previous life or now, the shadow dragon always gave Lillian face. Thinking of this, many thoughts quickly ran through his mind. Even if there were 7 trillion troops, it was not the time to shed all pretense of cordiality with the mortal plane. Just look at the fate of the demons. The number of demons was higher than the troops of the shadow world. What was the result? They were still being hung by the hammer by the good camp. Therefore, even if they really wanted to do something, they had to wait for a good opportunity. Thinking of this, Li Cheng said, "These troops should just obediently stay in the shadow world." Of course, this was only temporary. No matter what, Li Cheng now had a trump card in his hands. It was an extremely powerful, super trump card that could crush everything. Lillian nodded lightly in response to this. She did not really care. In any case, she had left the decision to Li Cheng. No matter what decision he made, she, Lillian, would always be by his side. Right now, however, Asilia's expression was very bitter. If these 7 trillion troops invaded the mortal plane, it would truly be a disaster. She could only pray that Li Cheng had a kind heart. After eating, Li Cheng slowly led his troops back to his own territory. It was already afternoon, and there was still the wave of daily operations to be done, like recruiting all kinds of troops. 4,000 frost marksmen, 4,000 heavenly knights, 4,000 shadow assassins, and 1,000 frost dragons. Up until now, Li Cheng's total strength was 20,000 frost marksmen, 20,000 heavenly knights, 9,000 frost dragons, 8,000 shadow assassins, and more than 1,000 holy light priests. The DPS units were all filled up, but unfortunately, he did not have the authority to recruit priests. The series of events in the shadow world also made Li Cheng's mind chaotic. The day for him to leave the Church of Light might be brought forward by a lot. "It seems that I have to find a healing army," Li Cheng muttered. The most famous healers were the priests in the 2 temples. One was the Church of Light, and the other was the Church of the Goddess of Life. Thinking of this, Li Cheng thought that he would have to go ahead with his search for the Goddess of Life. At this time, Li Cheng was still browsing through the trends of the world. The hottest topics on the forum were still the large-scale events in the shadow world, and most of them were still questioning Li Cheng's cheats. Countless people from the Alliance constantly complained, requesting the officials to thoroughly investigate Li Cheng's account. After all, Li Cheng had closed the passage to the shadow world for a large number of players, leaving them no way to enter the shadow world. Among them were several stronger alliances in the online game: the Universe Alliance, the 100 Flowers Alliance, the Eagle Alliance, the White Elephant Alliance, and so on. Other than them, as long as one joined other alliances, their passage to the shadow world would be closed by Li Cheng. However, the officials did not pay any attention to them at all. Moreover, countless posts were filled with mockery and disdain from the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance. Seeing this information, Li Cheng nodded his head. After this large-scale event, the progress of the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance was definitely much faster than that of the other alliances. Whether it was shadow points or contribution points from the Church of Light, the players had earned a huge amount of points. As for the Holy War, Pearl's progress was also very smooth. The current progress of the event had already reached 90%. In 2 hours at most, they would be able to complete this large-scale mission. After everything went smoothly, Li Cheng looked at the recruitment building for the profound puppet. Unfortunately, it required some parts from the production line. Li Cheng's gaze fell on the building that had not been used yet in his backpack. Astral Portal, Mythical. To set up the Astral Portal, he would face a huge problem. There would be no energy supply. It was not that Li Cheng could not build it now, but the prerequisite for all of this was that he would still need hundreds of mana extractors. He thought for a while and decided to solve the energy problem before building it. At this moment, the system's voice suddenly rang in Li Cheng's ear. Ding, dong, respected Earl Netherworld, please go with Saintess Asilia to the Church of Light's Battle Conference Room to participate in the high-level meeting of the Legion. Ding, dong. As the voice fell, Li Cheng also looked in Asilia's direction and found that she was also looking at him. Apparently, she had also heard the system's notification. Li Cheng thought about it and decided not to go this time. The most important thing for him now was to find the Demon Chamber of Commerce. The Church of Light was probably urging him to send the Saintess back as soon as possible. When he thought of this, Li Cheng said, I won't go. I still have to command the Holy War in the Shadow World. I'll ask Sylvia to send you back. Oh, Asilia's face was full of unwillingness. She had only been out for less than 2 days, and the archbishops had already asked her to go back. She had not had enough fun yet. It was so interesting to follow Li Cheng. However, Asilia was clearly a good child. Even if she was extremely unwilling, she still followed Sylvia obediently. Chapter 137, Why does it feel a little crowded? Looking at Sylvia's retreating back as she left with Asilia, Li Cheng let out a long sigh. Without Asilia around, he would be able to act and speak much more easily. At this moment, Li Cheng looked at the bright moon in the sky and ordered, Lillian, Luna, prepare the troops and head to the dark regions. Yes, the two heroines replied in unison. This time, Li Cheng did not plan to bring Sylvia and the Dragon Legion. Soon, all the troops had gathered. Li Cheng waved his hand and casually crushed an acceleration scroll. Lillian also activated Shadow of the Mist and began to march. After about half an hour, Li Cheng looked at the dilapidated hut in front of him and could not help but sigh. A few days ago, he had spent a lot of time here. Now that his movement speed had increased several times, he arrived in just half an hour. Li Cheng did not hesitate and let all the troops enter the long and narrow tunnel. The vision in the dark region was still very dim. At the end of the tunnel, Li Cheng saw countless black-robed men. From Li Cheng's position, he could still vaguely hear their conversation. These days, there are more and more blind humans. Isn't that good? If we kill them, we can feed them to the dark hounds. We can save a lot of food that way. Hehe, the taste of human meat's pretty good. They still want to eat it. After hearing their words, Li Cheng understood the current situation. It seemed that what he had done in the underground plane last time had left an effect. These dark elves seemed to be the elite troops of some city. If players at the current stage were to enter this place, even Little Rain and Purple Rose would be killed. Of course, in front of Li Cheng, these dark elves were just a wave of experience points. Thinking of this, Li Cheng did not hesitate and ordered his troops to attack. Ding, dong, your troops have killed 1,000 Tier 8 Night Elf City Guards. You've obtained 800 experience points. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained 8 million experience points. Ding, dong, your troops have killed 1,000 Tier 8 Night Elf Mages. You've obtained 800 experience points. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained 8 million experience points. In just a second, the Dark Elf army was completely wiped out. Li Cheng did not even bother to look at what would drop from their corpses. He just walked past them quickly. A few minutes after Li Cheng left, a Dark Elf slowly got up from the ground. He looked at his companions' corpses with a face full of fear. What a terrifying army! They actually killed all of our troops in an instant. This is the elite army of the city. If it wasn't for my legendary pendant passed down from my ancestors, I would probably be dead by now. Could this human possess a legendary army? No, no, I have to report this to the city lord quickly. Such a powerful human army actually entered the underground. This is a big deal. On Li Cheng's side, he naturally did not care about a dark elf. He followed the memories in his mind as his army continued to move deeper into the underground. In an hour, Li Cheng passed by 3 night elf cities, one of which was a large city. It was equipped with a legendary defense tower. However, cloaked in the shadow of the mist, they failed to detect Li Cheng's troops. At this time, they had arrived at the destination of this trip, the entrance to the underground city of Tayavanas. Li Cheng looked at the long entrance in front of him, picked at his ears for a second, and shouted, "Tayavanas, come out to receive your guests." As soon as Li Cheng finished speaking, a petite figure appeared in front of Li Cheng in the next moment. Humph! Tayavanas looked at Li Cheng unhappily and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to take a look at the situation. This is because I'm concerned about you. Don't be ungrateful." After saying that, Li Cheng looked at the situation of the dungeon. As Tayavanas' owner, Li Cheng could access any information about the dungeon. After a simple scan, Li Cheng nodded and said, "Well, the development isn't too bad. It's already at level 2. It would have been better if he did not say that." As soon as Li Cheng said this, Tayavanas was so angry that she started jumping up and down. Her whole body was trembling and her teeth were chattering. The man in front of her was really too infuriating. He had destroyed her level 11 dungeon a day ago, and now he still had the nerve to appear in front of her and mock her. Fortunately, she did not have high blood pressure, or else, her blood vessels would have exploded and she would have died. The more Tayavanas thought about it, the angrier she became. She said angrily, "Are you here to mock me? I don't have the time." Seeing her current appearance, Li Cheng did not intend to tease her anymore. He told her the purpose of this trip. "I want to see the Demon Chamber of Commerce." "Demon Chamber of Commerce?" Tayavanas exclaimed in a small voice. She looked at Li Cheng in surprise and asked, "How do you know about them?" This time, it was Li Cheng's turn to be confused. He said, "Isn't it normal to know about them?" Tayavanas snorted in disdain. "It's normal." "It's not normal at all, okay. Even among the demons, not every demon had the right to know about the Demon Chamber of Commerce. The reason was very simple: the Demon Chamber of Commerce only served the royal family of the demon race. They were the so-called immortal demon kings and their descendants. As for the others, no matter how high the price was, the Demon Chamber of Commerce would not care. Therefore, Li Cheng had come to the right person this time. After rolling her eyes at Li Cheng, Tayavanas directly headed for the underground city. Li Cheng did not care about her behavior and led his troops to follow her. The tunnel in the underground city was very long, narrow, and winding. It could make people dizzy. At least it did not have a large number of traps. However, as Tayavanas was Li Cheng's slave, everything in the underground city, including the traps, automatically appeared in front of Li Cheng. Seeing this, Tayavanas was so angry that her teeth were itching. This meant that she could not do anything to resist him. She would never be able to escape from Li Cheng's control. A few minutes later, Li Cheng finally arrived at Tayavanas's dungeon. Li Cheng scratched the back of his head and looked at the dungeon core that was emitting a blood-red glow. He said in embarrassment, "Why does it feel a little crowded?" Hearing this, Tayavanas could not hold it in any longer. She clenched her fist and said, "It's a level 2 dungeon, how big do you want it to be?" Chapter 138, Immortal Sandy from the Demon Chamber of Commerce. Li Cheng smiled in embarrassment. He also realized that he had said the wrong thing. The current Tayavanas was really of the past. There were only a few thousand low-level demons in the underground city. The traps were also of the lowest level. They could only deal a few thousand points in damage. It was like scratching an itch. However, her resources were still full. At this point, Li Cheng did not beat around the bush. He said directly, "Contact the Demon Chamber of Commerce. Find the highest level salesperson." Li Cheng knew that the Demon Chamber of Commerce's high-level goods were all sold face-to-face. What they could sell depended entirely on the level of the salesperson. The higher the level of the salesperson, the greater the price they had to pay to summon them. Hearing this, Tayavanas snorted lightly. Either way, she was not the one paying. After thinking for a moment, she brought Li Cheng to a rotating dark portal. This portal was very similar to the one in the Shadow Trial, both were products from the demons. Tayavanas took out a small dagger and gently cut her fair and tender finger. Then, a drop of blood slowly floated into the portal. In the next moment, pitch-black flames suddenly spread out on the ground, slowly transforming into a slender figure. In an instant, a girl with abnormally fair skin walked out from the flames. She blinked, looked around, and said, "Hee, Your Highness, what happened to your dungeon?" Tayavanas was rendered speechless again. It was really a pot that could not be spilled. She snorted lightly and pointed at Li Cheng. After a slight pause, she said, "This is my prince consort. This time, he wants to buy something." The Demon Chamber of Commerce was only open to the royal family, so Tayavanas had to create an appropriate identity for Li Cheng. Being her prince consort was very suitable. She could not say that this was her master, right? If he said that, she would expose the slave contract, and Tayavanas would rather buy a piece of tofu and die on the spot. The young girl sized up Li Cheng and Tayavanas as if she could see that there was something wrong with their relationship, but she did not say anything. She smiled and said, "Prince consort? Hee, nice to meet you, human. I'm the highest level salesperson of the Demon Chamber of Commerce, Sandy." As soon as she finished speaking, an idea appeared above the girl's head. Sandy. Seeing these two words, Li Cheng's pupils could not help but shrink. Sandy was very famous. In the near future, she would be caught by a few legendary paladins while transporting goods. In turn, she easily tore those paladins apart with her hands. Thinking of this, Li Cheng cast a scouting spell and information about the Immortal Sandy immediately appeared in front of him. Grand Mage Sandy. Description: one of the 3 most senior salespeople in the Demon Chamber of Commerce. She has frequently been in and out of various planes for 10,000 years and is mainly responsible for the business of high-end goods. Level: Occupation: Grand Mage. Grade: Mythical, Tier 9. Skills: as the highest level salesperson in the Demon Chamber of Commerce, she naturally had some equipment on her that could hide her information. However, Li Cheng still managed to obtain some of it. This immortal was indeed a mythical grade existence. Moreover, she was at the peak of the mythical grade Tier 9. As long as she was given a divine personality, divine power, and a divine job, she could become a god at any time. However, the Demon Chamber of Commerce would definitely take some restrictive measures on her. Otherwise, why would such an expert run around the major planes every day? At this time, Sandy slightly narrowed her eyes and asked, "What do you want to buy, Prince Consort?" Li Cheng recalled the things he needed and planned to buy them all at once. He said, 40,000 pieces of spatial fluorites, 400,000 pieces of fluorescent stones, 2 pieces of ancient blue ice. Hearing Li Cheng name the items one by one, Tayavanas was also shocked. None of these things were cheap. However, thinking about it, the resources in this guy's territory were almost full, so he could indeed afford them. Immortal Sandy's eyes also lit up. It seemed that this prince consort in front of her was a big customer. This year's target would probably be achieved. She licked her lips and her face was full of smiles. Hehe, sister has already noted down your request. What do you want to pay with? The Demon Chamber of Commerce did not only use gold coins and other currencies to settle accounts. As long as it was something valuable, it could be appraised. This was also the reason why many people laundered money here. They did not care which items of whichever gods were going to be used. A divine fragment, Li Cheng said calmly. Hearing this, the smile on Sandy's face suddenly froze. Even Tayavanas's expression was equally interesting. They all suspected that they had heard wrong. Divine fragment? Did they hear wrong? The children of demon kings often fought over complete divine fragments, no? Compared to a complete divine fragment, a piece of a divine fragment was not much, but it was definitely still a hot item. Within the Demon Chamber of Commerce, there had not been a divine fragment for hundreds of years. Hearing that Li Cheng was going to use a divine fragment to trade, Immortal Sandy's breathing became a little hurried. She quickly said, "If it's a divine fragment, we still need to evaluate it first." Hearing that, Li Cheng casually flicked a pitch-black crystal over. It was a divine fragment of an ancient demon god. Immortal Sandy began to look at the crystal. After a while, her pupils suddenly shrank. This was actually a divine fragment of a demon god. In the demon world, this kind of divine fragment was definitely the most expensive. Immortal Sandy's slender fingers rubbed the divine fragment in her hand and said tentatively, "If you want to pay with the divine fragment, you'll need a total of 32 pieces." Hearing this, Li Cheng was stunned. Seeing Li Cheng's reaction, Immortal Sandy was also shocked. Was her asking price too high? If this scared Li Cheng away and he decided to use gold coins to trade instead, it would be too difficult for her. What Immortal Sandy was unaware of was that Li Cheng was thinking the exact opposite. He actually felt that it was too cheap. Using 32 divine fragments that were useless to him to exchange for so many rare materials, only the Demon Chamber of Commerce would give him such a price. In fact, the demon god's divine fragments were completely useless to Li Cheng. His goal was to get the complete god of massacre's divinity. As for the rest, he would also collect them, but it had to be said that this demon god's fragments were really too trash. He only used the divine fragments to trade because it was convenient for him, and he was too lazy to go to his territory to move things around. Chapter 139, Li Cheng's Plan. When he thought of this, Li Cheng took out 35 fragments from his backpack without hesitation and said coldly, "Here are 35 fragments. The remaining 3 is for you to keep your mouth shut." Immortal Sandy's eyes lit up. She did not care about Li Cheng's attitude at all and hurriedly took the fragments from him. She said with a smile, "Don't worry. The most important thing for our Demon Chamber of Commerce is to keep the information of our clients a secret. Sister will thank brother here." As soon as she finished speaking, she gently waved her arm and pitch-black flames appeared in the hall once again. When the flames dispersed, what appeared in their place were the materials that Li Cheng needed. When he saw these materials, a system notification rang in Li Cheng's ears. "Ding, dong, you've obtained the 40,000 spatial fluorites. Ding, dong, you've obtained 100 large dragon bones. Ding, dong, you've obtained 2 ancient blue ice. Ding, dong. With countless materials in hand, Li Cheng's strength would increase by a large margin. He casually put all the materials into his backpack. After the transaction was completed, Sandy left with satisfaction. Li Cheng looked at Tayavanas' hesitant expression, not knowing what she was thinking. He smiled and waved the divine fragment in his hand and asked, "What? Do you want it?" Tayavanas bit her pale pink lips and did not say anything. However, her expression betrayed her. Li Cheng casually put the divine fragment into his backpack and said, "I can't give this to you." Hearing this, Tayavanas sneered. As expected, how could she have confidence in this hateful human? Looking at her appearance, he already knew that this little lowly had misunderstood. He smiled and said, "You didn't see this demon god? His arms full of big pustules. What if you inherit his divine fragment and gain his appearance?" Upon hearing this, Tayavanas' expression froze. It seemed that she had misunderstood Li Cheng's meaning. However, regarding what Li Cheng had said, she also said with uncertainty, "It can't be." Li Cheng also replied with uncertainty, "That's hard to say. In his previous life, no human had become a god. Therefore, he was not sure about what would happen after a human became a god. There was always a possibility. If that was the case." Li Cheng imagined Tayavanas, the petite and cute little lowly, turning into a big monster full of pustules. He decided to forget about it. Although Tayavanas was his slave, she still looked quite pleasing to the eye. There was no need to gamble on this matter. To appease her, Li Cheng said, "Isn't it just a divine fragment? You can have as many as you want in the future. Don't be anxious." He. Hearing Li Cheng's words, Tayavanas took it as if he was bragging. She did not take it seriously. Gaining a divine personality was something many mythical grade powerhouses dreamed of. So many of her nominal brothers and sisters were forced to carry out cruel wars to obtain a divine personality. However, from Li Cheng's mouth, it became something that was very easy to obtain. Li Cheng did not explain too much regarding Tayavanas' question. In the later stage of the game, the gods were in chaos and countless gods had fallen. It was not that difficult to get a divine fragment then. In Li Cheng's plan, Tayavanas was an existence that absolutely wanted to become a god. Taking her as his slave was in his plan of becoming a god in the future. When he thought of this, Li Cheng did not think any further. It would still take him some time to attain his goal. After pondering, he said, "In a while, I'll come here to install the Astral Gate's Vice Gate. Later on, I'll build some buildings for you here. I'll solve the energy and storage problems in one go. Also, I'll build some defensive facilities for you. These will be enough for you to use for a long time." The things that Li Cheng mentioned were the special buildings of the Profound Empire, the Profound Energy Extractor and the Profound Storage Space. The materials that he had just bought had increased the progress of his plans by several times. It was enough to build many of them. After saying this, Li Cheng casually threw her a relocation order and said, "This is a relocation order. Take it with you first. In a few months, we'll make a relocation." The nature of an underground city was actually similar to a player's territory. However, the owner of the territory was the daughter of the Demon King, and the territory was located in the underground cities. The children of the Demon King would open up entrances underground and on the surface. Then, they would build various mazes and traps to kill any invaders. In fact, this was the story of the Demon King and the Brave. As for Li Cheng himself, he was naturally very interested in the vast underground world. One had to know that the treasures here were not less valuable than those on the surface. The various major powers underground would fight over them themselves. Even if he created a huge commotion, as long as it did not affect their own interests, they would only watch from the sidelines. It was unlike the mortal plane. If Li Cheng dared to massacre a city, he would instantly be attacked by the good camp. Thus, in Li Cheng's eyes, the underground world was like a piece of fat meat. Having an underground city would undoubtedly save a lot of energy. His plan was like this. First, he would accumulate a wave of strength. Regardless of whether it was Li Cheng or Tayavanas, they would need to develop their strengths for a period of time. After they had enough strength, they would relocate their territories to the floating island. After that, they would be able to rely on their invincible defense system, ignoring all the conflicts in the world. Even if they were enemies with the entire world, they would still have the strength to fight. Of course, Tayavanas would need to hide in the depths of the darkness. It was best if she did not expose herself. At this moment, after hearing Li Cheng's words, Tayavanas had no reason to refuse. She kept a cold face and did not speak, but her body was still very well behaved. She could not wait for Li Cheng to bring her what she needed. At this moment, a demon rushed over in a hurry and said, "Your Highness, it's bad. Dark elves are attacking us." "Dark elves?" Tayavanas asked, "How many are there?" "At least a few million units." Upon hearing her subordinate's words, Tayavanas's eyelids twitched. Her current dungeon was still in its development stage. It was impossible for her to fight against a large dark elf army. As of late, she had been very careful. With her rich experience, logically speaking, it was impossible for anyone to discover the dungeon. Thinking of this, Tayavanas already had an answer in her heart. There could only be one reason for this. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Li Cheng. Without even thinking, she knew that he did not conceal his trail properly when he came, which helped the Dark Elves discover this place. Chapter 141, Everyone has one piece of immortal equipment. The production line started to operate quickly. In less than half an hour, everything was completed and Li Cheng could start building all kinds of buildings. At that moment, the last item in the production line was completed. The system notification rang in Li Cheng's ear. Ding, dong. Due to your extremely high luck value, you have a new inspiration during the production process. You've successfully forged an immortal grade profound armor. Hearing the system notification, Li Cheng was shocked. It was originally a mythical grade design, but due to his extremely high luck value, he had forged an immortal grade military equipment. This equipment was also Li Cheng's first immortal military equipment. It was of great significance. Li Cheng hurriedly opened his backpack and checked its attributes. Profound armor. Description: originally, it was just an ordinary profound armor. However, after being reinforced by Grandmaster Netherworld, it has successfully become an immortal grade profound armor. The armor is made from the most precise mana fluid, and soldiers with low physical damage are simply unable to deal damage to it. The built-in profound energy storage device helps the armor withstand a huge amount of damage. Grade: Immortal, Tier 1. Type: Soldier Equipment. Level: 1. Attribute 1, Soldier Defense plus 200%, HP plus 200%. Attribute 2, Immune to physical damage from legendary soldiers and below. Attribute 3, Profound Fluid, consumes energy to produce fluid for defense. Effect: creates a shield that can offset 10 damage points. Attribute 4, Profound Recharge, absorbs crystals to recharge. Effect: one crystal can replenish 1 point of energy with the limit being 5,000,000 points. Looking at the attributes of the profound armor, even Li Cheng gulped. This equipment could only be described as ridiculously ridiculous. Li Cheng had never seen immortal grade military equipment before. Although he was only an ordinary player in his previous life, at the later stages of the game, all the items that should have been dropped were dropped. Those that he did not encounter were either top tier or the best of the best. Perhaps no one in the entire human world had seen such equipment before. The 4 attributes were simply too strong. The first attribute directly increased the defense of the military by several times. As long as this equipment was equipped, even Li Cheng's most vulnerable shadow assassins and priests would become great meat shields. The second attribute provided immunity to all physical attacks from legendary soldiers and below. It was simply ruthless. Li Cheng had never heard of such an attribute. Then, there were two skills that could be paired together. Li Cheng could only sigh. Such attributes were too strong. As long as he replenished the armor with crystals, he could recharge his shield. When he received damage, the shield's damage would be offset by energy. Moreover, the maximum charge was 5,000,000. If the shield was fully charged, it could withstand a significant amount of damage. This meant that all units' HPs had increased by 50 million points. This number was very good. A single unit would cost 5,000,000 crystals. To ordinary players, this was undoubtedly an astronomical figure that they simply could not afford. However, it was not that Li Cheng could not afford it. The most ridiculous thing was that Li Cheng had his own design for this equipment. In other words, if he continued to have good luck, he could definitely do it for every soldier. In any case, there were 4 equipment columns for legendary soldiers. Up until now, none of them had filled up the equipment columns. As for the champion soldiers, there were 8 equipment columns. In other words, it was completely possible for every soldier division to have immortal grade equipment. When he thought of this, Li Cheng sucked in a breath of cold air. Since the idea was feasible, he began to put it into practice. Li Cheng did not hesitate and immediately produced another 10 pieces of armor. Producing one required 2 billion crystals, so 10 pieces required 20 billion crystals. To Li Cheng, this amount was like a drop in the ocean. Ding, dong, production line 1 is in operation. The current production material is the mythical grade profound armor. Ding, dong, production line 2 is in operation. The current production material is the mythical grade profound armor. Ding, dong. The 10 production lines were immediately put into production. Li Cheng's materials were also used up. After about half an hour, all the production lines were completed at the same time, and a series of sounds from the system rang again. Ding, dong, because your luck value is extremely high, you have a new inspiration in the production process. You've successfully forged an immortal grade profound armor. Ding, dong, because your luck value is extremely high, you have a new inspiration in the production process. You've successfully forged an immortal grade profound armor. Ding, dong. As the system series of notifications fell, Li Cheng was a little dumbfounded. This time, he really did produce another 10 pieces of immortal grade profound armor. Li Cheng was beginning to doubt his life. The probability of this was too high, or was it his luck value that was too high? This was the first time he truly felt the benefits of having a high luck value. He blinked and muttered, "Should I build an altar for the goddess of luck in my territory? This is too awesome." After settling everything, Li Cheng returned to the territory with all his things. He immediately started to build all kinds of buildings. Ding, dong, you've successfully consumed 10 trillion crystals and 5,000 space fluorites to build the profound storage. Ding, dong. You've successfully consumed 10 trillion crystals and 5,000 space fluorites to construct the profound energy extractor. Ding, dong. The entire territory was rumbling. Li Cheng had also used the building spawn rate card, so countless buildings were completed in an instant and his level was immediately maxed out. First were the profound storage and profound energy extractor that Li Cheng currently needed the most. These two buildings had an obvious high-tech feeling and they were emitting azure light. Li Cheng also began to check their attributes. Profound storage. Description: the Profound Empire has an extremely deep understanding of spatial magic. Using spatial fluorites, they can create a huge space that can hold all the resources of the entire continent. Note that this space cannot hold living things. Level 10. Attributes: storage resources, upper limit, 9,999 trillion. Required to level up, maxed out. Profound energy extractor. Description: the Profund Empire has a deep understanding of magic energy. With the use of lasers, they can instantly cut crystals to produce magic energy. Level 10. Attributes: Conversion of magic energy, upper limit 9,999 trillion. Required to level up, maxed out.